Now, should we return to those claims developed yesterday that the late Queen Elizabeth was livid when she heard that Harry and Meghan had named their daughter after her?
Now, palace insiders say Her Majesty was so upset by the decision that she told aides, "The only thing I own is my name," and now they've taken that. We're joined by the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, which means she could be anywhere, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, good morning.
Good morning.
You're at large in our studio.
I'm at large, I'm here.
It was really interesting yesterday. Rosie and I were covering this, and today, I mean, just lay out what happened yesterday. Apparently, the Queen Palace sources on the back of this Robert Hardman book, serialised, and he'll be on this show at some point this week. That's a guarantee. She was angry that this name Lilibet, that was a very personal name between her and her sister, because when they were young growing up, they couldn't say Elizabeth, had been hijacked somewhat by Harry and Meghan. Today, implications in newspapers that the palace are quite happy to, if you like, guarantee that this is true because they're so fed up with the criticism from Harry and Meghan. Would that be fair?
I think that's fair. I think the palace has been waiting a long time for some of these, how shall I say, recollections may vary moments, to slowly, in the full course of time, emerge to actually be incorrect in this case. Because if you remember at the time, the BBC reported that the Queen wasn't that happy about the name, and the Sussexes came down like a ton of bricks, and then they expected the palace to follow suit and back up their denial, which they didn't.
Silence instead.
Silence instead. But still, nobody actually reported, well, actually, the Queen was livid. And now, and this is what the palace is so brilliant at, they've just played the long game, kept quiet. A couple of years down the line, we're finding out the Queen was livid. You know, the Sussexes are getting their comeuppance a little bit.
Already, did you see that quote yesterday? Apparently she said, "I don't own the palaces, I don't own anything. It's all I own is my name." I mean, that's quite powerful, isn't it?
So powerful, and it shows how deeply hurt she was. And pictures is emerging of her being really hurt. And if you remember at the time, Philip used to call her Lilibet sometimes, and Philip had only just died. So it's just incredibly personal. She's missing her husband. She's got this whole circus with Meghan and Harry that's been rolling on for years and months. And now this sort of really hurtful thing has happened.
Yeah.
I can imagine her almost sort of stamping her fist.
They tried to use it as a positive PR, and the Queen clearly was unhappy. Charlotte, explain to people who kind of are unfamiliar with how this type of royal reporting works. You say the palace have played the long game. What is the strategy, and how do they then slowly and cleverly and carefully actually get their side of the story across?
Well, I think in this instance, what they've done is not denied, but, you know, not denied with some very specific, wording. And, you know, they haven't exactly said, yes, everything Robert Hardman said is true, but Robert Hardman's got some amazing insights for some real palace aides.
He's quite trusted, isn't he?
He's really well trusted. He's liked by the aides, and they're just, you know, they're not denying anything, and that's sort of how the palace confirm things.
A lot of people would say, and we've had this discussion privately, that you know, certain people say here on this station, me, whatever, you know, are very anti-Harry and Meghan, and I would only rail against that in one way, because I said a lot, and I answered this to you, that I actually quite admired them when they said we want to get out of the goldfish bubble. I think the problem instantly was when you land in another country and say, oh, I've left because of privacy, give me 100 million, I'll do whatever. It's an ongoing debate, isn't it, Harry and Meghan? You know, are the family ever going to reunite? What will happen? Will she do this? Will she do that? It's becoming somewhat boring, but one gets the feeling that they're running out of road. Is that a I don't know, I get the feeling that there's not a lot more that can happen, and we need to get on with our lives.
Gosh, well, we've said that many a time before.
Yeah,
there's not a lot more that can happen, and then the next thing we find out is they've named their daughter Lilibet. And, you know, and by the way, it's traditional to, if you want to make a nod to the Queen, it's traditional to use the word Elizabeth as a middle name, not Lilibet. So
that's what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. So they deliberately, and it's sort of what you said before, they deliberately courted more publicity by calling her Lilibet. If they just made the middle name Diana, which they did, and Elizabeth, that would have got a bit of publicity, but they went for maximum impact. I'm not saying they don't love the name Lilibet.
What do you say to the people that say that's just unfair? We're picking at Harry and Meghan, and that's not right.
Well, I think a lot of people say, you know, don't take this out on a little girl who's innocent. But it's not about that. And that's what Meghan and Harry will be saying over there in Montecito. They'll be saying, the press are attacking my little girl. We're not attacking their little girl. It's about, as you say, courting publicity, making a drama, inviting their daughter into the circus by calling her Lilibet, not having that self-awareness to think, well, actually, will the Queen be honoured by this? And also slightly bouncing her into the decision. So, you know, at the time, reports said that they said to the Queen, we'd like to name her Lily in honour of you. and they hadn't made it 100% clear, and they hadn't given her the option to say no.
Yeah.
The way they went about
kind of telling rather than asking, and now that side of the stories will come out.
So, yeah.
Should we talk about this new portrait of the king? So local authorities, that might be kind of police stations, schools, if they would like, they're going to have this portrait of the king. What's sort of the history of that, and what does it look like?
Well, I noticed, first of all, that here at talkTV, you've still got the picture of the Queen downstairs.
So I walked into News UK this morning, having read this story, and Her Majesty the Queen's portrait is still on the right. I
wouldn't want you to take her down, but maybe you could have them both up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's an aside, but I always think...
Speak to Rupert Murdoch, it's not my decision.
Do you ever notice when you go to foreign countries, they often have the monarchs up in every single municipal building, but we just don't really have that tradition. I think it's a shame. I think this could be a good moment to really encourage and galvanise schools and hospitals and, you know, swimming pools, you know, anything really. Just get him up there.
And if you wanted it, this is it is handsome. It's sort of lovely gold tones to it.
Isn't it?
It might be a little bit photoshopped under the old crow's feet, I think, but I don't want to be unkind. He looks good.
Listen, I'm a big fan. I think he's done a really good job in a short space of time.
I think realistically we won't, though, will we? I don't think we're going to see a new era in which the king's up in every building. We just, as a nation, we just don't really do that. But I think we should.
It culturally really doesn't fit, does it?
Yeah, somehow it's seen as undiverse or something like that.
I remember going to America for the first time and driving down a road, and everybody has an American flag in their garden, and everybody has a picture of, well, presumably Donald Trump next year. I don't think it would be a bad thing.
It's a symbol of nationalism, and some people are a bit nervous of too much nationalism, aren't they?
So Jeremy's going to lead the petition to have a picture of the king in the corridor at News UK?
It's not down to me, but I mean, with the Queen, I think the things about the Queen very quickly is that she was there for so long, and even those anti-royalists were just, she was part of the life.
Yeah, and because she was older, people didn't want to be unkind about her because she was a little old lady. Let's face it, by the end. Tough underneath, though, as we found.
And can be angry as well, as we learnt this week as well. Charlotte, thank you so much.